Hey INFPs, the name is Erik Thor, and today we're going to talk about where feelings, emotions come from, right? And as an INFP, you might have found yourself perplexed by this question. Where do they come from, right? Don't they just come from themselves? Don't they just exist on their own sake? Well, nothing actually just exists on its own sake. If we look at nature, everything is in a perfect harmony, and everything we see in the world and in nature serves a role for everything else, right? So as a whole, we are living in a state of symbiosis and in a state of compassion with everything around us, and so too are your emotions. Your emotions are not random events that just happen for no reason, and the fact that you feel sad or upset or angry or unhappy or excited or enthusiastic, that's not sheer coincidence. It's not something random that you just feel, but that you wouldn't want to feel, that you don't like that you feel, that you don't want to have, right? It's an experience that comes from something, right? So where do your emotions come from as an INFP? To understand where emotions come from, we have to look at something interesting, which is your sensing function, right? Did you know that all emotions start in sensory experiences? So typically, emotions are not brought out on their own. There's always a sensory trigger that brought it out or made you feel that way, right? So think about it like this. Whenever you have an experience, your body, your senses are stored as memories inside you, and these senses, these triggers, these experiences, they can store themselves literally in your muscles, in your back, in everything, right? So even in smell, in sounds, in music, and in things like that, right? So typically, it's always going to start with a sensory experience. So you're gonna have emotions because you listen to a certain song, you were listening to a certain kind of music, you heard somebody speak with a certain tone of voice that made you think of or remember something that you had previously experienced. It can be your parents scolding at you. It could have been like somebody that did something mean to you that made you feel sad, or it could have been a difficult situation in your life where you felt really afraid or anxious or unconfident, right? So this is typically what's going on here. Like we have emotions because of sensory experiences. So things happen to us that trigger emotions that get us to feel a certain kind of feeling. And so if you have a difficult experience or if you feel bad, it's always worth looking at your sensory triggers to ask yourself, where am I right now? How does my room look right now? Is it messy? Do I smell anything that I don't like? Are there any things about the lighting that could be improved? Are there any things about the music that I'm listening to that could be different? Are there anything about the environment that I could change to make myself feel better, right? You could, for example, ask yourself, can I go to another place that will make me feel better, right? Because even stepping into a completely different room in your environment or your apartment or house, like even these kind of choices can have immediate effects on your mood and how you feel. Going to a new place, like getting out of the house or going into nature, these things can really transform your feelings and what happens, right? But the truth is, it goes a lot deeper than that though. It's not just that whenever you have an emotion or a bad feeling, that the solution is run away, right? Because you can't always just run away. If you're in a conflict or a discussion with your partner and you feel emotions are starting to overwhelm you, right? Or you're starting to get angry or upset or something happened, right? You can't always get out of that situation right away, right? So what do? Well, typically, like, yes, you can develop emotional management skills that allow you to stay calm in these kind of environments. That doesn't mean that you don't have to feel that emotion. Emotional management is about recognizing your feelings through mindfulness by paying attention to your environment, your surroundings, to what's happening in the situation, to what's going on. These things, they lead to an immediate calming of your emotions, right? But also identifying and thinking about what actions you need to take to feel better, right? So typically it comes from not just knowing and recognizing your environment, but also it comes from being able to think of what strategy to take in order to feel better. These are the things that, INFJs, ENFJs, ESFJs, and ISFJs seem to be really good at. Knowing how to make changes in their life to make themselves feel better. Now, another key thing that triggers emotions is not just the senses, but also your intuition, right? So often I like to say that feelings are senses that are intuited, right? So when we have an experience, a lot of the time, it's not that the experience triggers your emotions in the most logical or straightforward of fashions, right? So what can be going on, for example, is you might find yourself You might find yourself going into a specific situation and having a specific sensory experience, but then your intuition starts taking over, right? So you start scanning it, you start making pattern recognition, you start thinking into the future, where is this going to lead? Why did this person say that? What did this person do that? And that seems to be what triggers emotions, right? So emotion seems to be our intuition decoding sensory experiences. So it can be seeing that somebody is acting weird or different, and then thinking about why they're acting weird or different, or what's going on. And it can be both positive and negative here, right? Because it can be, oh, this person must be planning a surprise birthday party for me, right? And that can be a really cool and positive experience. It makes you feel really happy and excited, unless you hate surprises, right? But even in itself, right? The ability to use your intuition to decode sensing seems to be what gives you emotional experiences. So here you can also recognize this, because if you stop using your intuition to decode a situation, you're probably not going to have an emotional experience. You're just going to have a sensory one, right? But if you don't have any sensory triggers, you're also not going to have any emotions, because nothing is going to trigger any emotions in you, right? So eventually the emotional experience is going to go away. And this is going to be a really powerful insight for you as an INFP, because if you know whenever you have emotions, whenever you have feelings, that you have a choice, where you can either go into a new environment or make some physical adjustments to your space to improve your mood, or you can change your intuition, how you decode patterns, how you think about things, and how you approach your thoughts. And you can learn to do these things by practices like meditation, which teach you awareness of your thoughts and how you think and why you think the way that you do, right? So these kind of strategies are all equally important, but also just recognizing that, well, you're always going to be in a sensory space. So you're always going to be in a space that is going to trigger some kind of emotion, right? And learning to think about why you have the kinds of associations you do. Why do I associate this smell with this feeling? Why do I tend to get nervous in these kinds of environments? Why do I tend to get upset when I'm around these kinds of people? Why do I find myself getting sensitive when I hear people talk about this or this or this, right? So just remembering and recognizing and thinking back, was there something that happened to me in my past that made me, respond this way? Do I associate this with anything else? Is this part of some other system or something about me? Or do I just have some kind of trigger on this? And where did that trigger start? Since when have I been reacting like that? What tends to cause it? And, just thinking about this. Like, this kind of introspective skill is, of course, one of the INFP's key fortes. So as an INFP, what you're really good at through introverted feeling is taking sensory experiences that happen to you in the moment, what you can do about them, getting creative, thinking about new things you could do to manage those things differently, to improve how you feel, to cause and to give yourself an immediate boost in your mood. Get creative in thinking of how I can do things differently, how I can feel better, what I can change about my environment, but also get aware of your history. Recognize your past, recognize your traditions, recognize the systems that brought you up, recognize the environments and those kinds of experiences and how they and who they made you into, right? And how they cause you to feel, because those things are still there. The past belongs in the past, but it's sometimes going to pop up in the present. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/Erik Thor. If you have any questions about being an INFP or managing your emotions, just send me a message. Thank you so much for watching, and see you all in the next video.